on the Duramax oil change. I know I'm probably not going to get very many views on this, but you start out with a 16 millimeter to remove the drain plug. This is a nice dirty truck. It's used. It's got 209,000 miles on it. Usually I keep the engine compartment clean, but I haven't been driving it much, so I live in the dirt, so it gets dirty all the time. Rocella T6, full synthetic. Everybody goes, well, I change it every 3,000 miles. That's totally unnecessary. My oil will probably not be dirty, and I don't know exactly how many miles it has on it because I used the computer that the truck came with to do my oil changes, and I'm using synthetic oil. So more than likely, there's not a lot of breakdown going on. So, and it's going to be way less than what the engine will require to last 400,000 to 600,000 miles. So I'm really not worried about changing it every 3,000 miles. I'm going by what the factory recommends, which is the computer in the truck does the calculating for that. Also, I highly recommend replacing your air filter with every oil change, because they do suck up a lot of stuff, and something that you can forget very easily. You can see right here underneath, right here by the differential, if you have four-wheel drive, right here is where your oil plug is. That's it right there. I'm just going to put the wrench on it. I'm going to spare you guys the details of watching the oil drain. I think everybody's changed oil once. If you haven't, watch somebody else's video first, because I'm just kind of going over my spin on this. Now, if you did this right, the last time you changed the oil, you shouldn't have any trouble really getting the oil filter off too much without a wrench. A lot of guys tend to over tighten the oil filter. You don't need a wrench to tighten it. You should use it should be done completely by hand, and I believe it says right on the filter 3/4 to 1 turn once the gasket has touched the surface. So read the instructions on the oil filter. That usually tells you exactly how to tighten it. I used to work in an oil shop years ago when I was a mechanic, and one of the guys used to say 1 3/4 turns, and it's like, dude, read the instructions. It says 3/4 to 1 turn, but he thought that meant 1 3/4 turns. So every time an oil filter came back, we had to use some sort of a, like a giant pair of pliers or something to get them back off. But it should turn by hand. I'm using my left hand a little bit. Yep. And since I did it last time and I was cheap and used a cheap MicroGuard filter, I think it's because I got it for free or something like that. But I usually use Wix. If you notice here, Wix. It's a better filter. It's better than Fram. Fram is mostly made in China. Wix is made in USA. So hopefully you've got a model that has a computer, because what you normally do is you move this around by using this button here on your steering wheel. It's on the left hand side. I don't want to start the engine because it's just draining the oil right now. So you move this around. If you can see in the background, it says engine oil life 100%, but because that's just our reset it. And what you do is you push that button around to where it says engine oil life, and you go to here and you push and hold this for about 10 seconds, and then it resets. You'll watch it actually go to 100%. I don't think it'll do it twice, but that's how you reset your engine oil life. And I generally set mine at that because it goes by your boost, the amount of stress you're putting on your engine, if you're doing a lot of highway miles. So, I mean, you could actually stretch out your oil change about to maybe 5,000 or 6,000 miles on that without doing any damage to your engine. And typically my oil just comes out like a dark brown, like anybody else's oil does. This truck has 209,000 miles, has no signs of engine wear, has good oil pressure, and I have only run T6 about the last 50,000 miles. Before that I was running Castrol, which is probably one of the best oils out there, but you know, you can get such a good deal on a synthetic oil. I decided to go ahead and switch to it, and most of the new oils except for Pennzoil, and you know, if you're using a good diesel oil like Dello 400 or Rotella T6 or T5, or you're using Castrol diesel, generally they're designed, or Castrol Edge diesel, as long as it's designed for the diesel engine, you're probably going to have no problems with your truck lasting a long time. I'm expecting to get at least 400,000 to 600,000 miles out of this motor before I ever have to do anything major to it. The injectors will have to get changed. So while that's filling up, I've got the oil cap off. Engine oil, it's right in the front of the engine. Got my funnel set up here. You should always take a look at your belts real quick. When you got that off, make sure there's no fraying going on. Make sure they're not cracked. Look over your entire system, check your coolant, make sure it's full, make sure your all your fluids are right. Kind of look the engine over. This is the time to do it, and give everything a quick look and make sure there's nothing just hanging there or falling off. Just kind of look around. That's the best thing to do all the time when you do your oil change. Also, your fuel filter should get changed at least every other oil change. Some guys do it every oil change. It's a little bit overkill, but you can't do the fuel filter too often. They do tend to get water in the system. Not as much in the Chevy. On my Ford, for some reason it just gets water in it all the time. But the Chevy, the Duramax, for some reason it doesn't have too many problems with that for some reason. I don't know why. So anyway, so real quick on your drain plug, there's always a brass washer. You want to inspect that before you put that back on. Make sure it's still there. And then I'm going to clean all this up in a minute. A little messy because I'm in a bit of a hurry right now. I've got to leave town next week. And I forgot about the oil being, I was a little bit past my oil change time because I was on the road and it said 5%, and I'm like, hey, this is gonna go. So you loosen up your filter till it starts to drip a bit, and then set your oil pan right underneath there. If you're somewhere where you can't make a mess, just don't change the oil. Take it to Jiffy Lube, for God's sakes. Don't be so cheap. But, you know, you're going to always have a little bit of mess when you change oil. I just don't want to wait. I don't like to go to one of those places. And they always end up over-tightening my filter, so I like to do it myself. So I'll just take this guy out. I'm not going to wait for it to drip all the way, which I should, because I usually get a pretty good size mess going from doing it this way, but I just don't have time to do it. So, and I wanted to show you this real quick, something I see everybody miss. Every time you take that filter off, you feel right here on this surface where your new gasket goes, and you make sure that the old gasket did not stick to the surface. Check and make sure, double check, triple check, make sure that that old gasket is not on there. Okay? I'm going to see if I can get a better view of this. There would be an old gasket on that surface. It's really hard to see sometimes because it's black, so clean it off good. Make sure that that old gasket is not there. If you don't do that, the one time that you don't, you'll probably have an old gasket there, and you'll have the biggest, most giant mess you've ever seen in your entire life. When you're a mechanic and you have lube oil and filter crew doing their job, they screw up every once in a while, and you get to see the wonderful mess of the double gasket oil spill from hell. So make sure you have that gasket off there. We're going to let that drain a second, and I'll get my... Real quick, the oil amount that you need is 2.5 gallons. You can add another maybe half a quart past that if you want, to make it exactly to the full line, but 10 quarts is usually the amount you need.